Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience WGC St. Jude Invitational DraftKings picks and preview. If you want to get into a draw for $20 DK, here's what you do. For the video, you smash the like button. You leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me your favorite play from above $10,000. That's going to be the draw this week. Also, if you want to get on the audio giveaways, you rate the Pat Mayo Experience 5 stars, leave your DraftKings handle, say something nice about the show, boom, you're in that draw as well. Also, follow me on Instagram at the PME, heart one of the golf or football photos that appear up there. Any other post that you do that on, you're going to be blocked. But you just leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section there as well, and boom, you'll also be in the draw for $20 DK. The 3 ways to do so, winners announced on Monday's show. Also, play in the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Listeners League. You can find the link straight to the tournament in the description of this podcast or the video on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, there'll be a link to the podcast, which will push you to the link that is in the description up there. If you're wondering where to find it, that's where it is. We cannot post the link on YouTube anymore, so, go do that. We need to fill it. There's like 4,000 spots this week. I think only 1,700 are filled so far. It's $15 to play, 3 max entry. No rake. It's legitimately the best tournament on DraftKings, so you might want to go check it out. Play that one first before you go enter anything else. I'm sure you're going to play multiple lineups, multiple tournaments, but that is the one that you should be focusing on. Joining me to break this all down from Awesemo.com, coming off the heels of his British Open Pat Mayo Experience, where he was not the most successful of the guests, because that was Toe Tag and Tambo, who finished inside the top 20. But Ben Rasa is back. What's going on?
Not much. Yeah, we British is over, on to WGC. So golf season really never ends.
We're going to get like a 3-week break here coming up. Do you have any idea how possibly they can structure DraftKings for the Tour Championship?
No, I mean, I'm sure they'll think of something. Obviously, yeah, the FedEx is the last big thing. They've got some major tournaments. Their version of the live final is during that time. So there's still some things to look forward to. It'll be interesting to see what they do, though.
I would think that maybe you take placement points out of it, or maybe that gets factored into the actual pricing. I don't know. Maybe you play it more like Showdown, where you just take like kind of results out of it, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday Showdown, and just make those the rules. It's going to be very complicated.
Definitely going to be complicated, but honestly, it's one of those things. If you take the time to, research it and get a feel, there's going to be a lot of people that don't do that, and there'll probably be a built-in edge just based off the new situation.
You say there will be a built-in edge, but as we know, the more research you do, generally the worse you end up faring.
I can confirm that, especially lately, thanks to Jason Day. But
yeah. How was the British Open for you? Like, what sort of, not necessarily like money volume did you play? What type of tournaments did you target, and how'd you end up doing? Because I did not great.
I was actually all right. It's funny, and this is DFS in a nutshell. I think it was my most frustrating week of the entire year, but it wasn't by any stretch my worst week. It was just, I was pretty happy with my player pool. They had a lot of different tournaments. They had some new 3 maxes, some good high stakes tournaments and whatnot. And I was right there. It was just Jason Day was someone that I obviously didn't consider missing the cut at any point. And then I look back, I really just needed him to play the weekend. That would have been the difference in some things, but obviously that didn't happen. And when you lose a guy like that, it can really make or break a week.
Yeah, so there are a bunch of new tournaments on DraftKings this week. Instead of the $5, there's the $10 that has $200,000 to first prize, which is crazy to roll. I guess people have that extra British Open money to pump back through. I remember when I hit big at the Heritage, that was one of the main reasons. It was in the $5, potentially even the $4, but they gave out $100,000 to first prize that week. And like leading up before the Masters, it was all like, $40K to first, $50K to first. But where it was the week after the Masters, everyone had, extra money in their DraftKings account, so they pumped up the prize pools a little bit. Seems like they're doing that this week, although they've doubled the entry fee, so of course they're going to have to double first prize. There's also a $15 single entry, which the structure is very much like the Pat Mayo Experience Open, Ben, except for there is rake, unlike my tournament where there is no rake. But I think they've seen the success, that how quickly this tournament fills up every single week, that maybe that the flatter payout structures is something that could be coming, at least for particular tournaments.
I hope so. Putting a third up top in some of these, it's really tough. Obviously, long term, if you can overcome it, but the variance is gigantic, and it's really hard to see yourself beat 99.5% of the lineups and triple up. So I hope they do that. Maybe experiment with 3 max, 5 max, and get more creative as the season goes on.
Yeah, one of the big things that I talked to DraftKings about when I was structuring my tournament is that I wanted everyone who plays to at least double their money. That maybe fewer spots are actually paid out, but because there's no rake, you can actually kind of do that. Certain weeks it's not. I don't know why. That's just, I guess, the way it breaks down. But that should at least be a bare minimum requirement, is doubling your money, even if you have to pay fewer places.
For sure. It's not to me. It doesn't seem overly difficult. There's other structures out there. World Series of Poker was just going on. I've seen that in the Twitter world. You can model it after some things. I just think when you have such a overblown top prize, it obviously has a trickle down effect. And if you come in first, it's fantastic. But if you don't, it's almost like a winner take all mentality.
And I'm not too concerned about like a flat payout structure for something like the Millionaire Maker or something like even this $10 where there's $200,000 at the top. Like you need those big prize pools. Like if the Millionaire Maker wasn't giving out $1 million for first prize, the tournament wouldn't be so popular.
No, there's something to that. It's not like you have to do away with all of those. I just wish there was a little more, in terms of options. And some of the higher stakes tournaments, it's legitimately, 33 and a third up top. And I don't think that that's necessary or prudent. Honestly, I think they'd be better served by maybe flattening it. People could keep money in the ecosystem and it wouldn't bleed you to death.
Yeah, I can see that. Any thoughts about the majors, at least from a DraftKings perspective, now that we're through all four of them? And even the players, really, at least in terms of how it was, the tournaments that were available on DraftKings almost set up like a major in that way as well. That, are you going to change your philosophy a little bit? Because it's funny, because I ended up going super chalky for the first time this year in a major, and this was the one to not go chalky whatsoever. So I've actually figured out a way to not only change my strategy midstream, but have it wrong to begin with and then switch it to something that turned out to be wrong anyway.
Yeah, that's it's tough. Obviously, it's only a handful of tournaments a year. Some of them, the US Open and the British are course dependent in the sense of we don't know exactly how it's going to play. Sometimes we think it's going to be the winner's going to be over par, then that's not the case. I think it's just kind of this day and age. We'll see. Obviously, Brooks is so polarizing right now, but there's so many guys up there that when you come in off recent form, it seems some guys are trending up. I tend to take the guys that maybe aren't playing as well. Uh, Obviously, it certainly wasn't a good year for me in the majors. I did not do much in any of them, to be honest. PGA was fine, but the other three weren't great. So we'll have to see. Obviously, the Masters, it's a long break for us. This is the longest break we've had in a long time. It's not in the near future.
But unlike the other sports that just kind of go away after a Super Bowl, then football just ends for 8 months or so until we can play DraftKings again. At least golf still has tournaments almost every single week, so it's not like the money has gone away. You can still win a bunch of money on these tournaments. Let's talk WGC. First off, WGC strategy, 64 players in the field, no cut event. You want to be targeting birdies and eagles, although this is a par 70, and eagles are not plentiful. Coming in only 20 last year on the 2 par 5s, but I'm not going to be sweating guys that make a ton of bogeys as long as they make a ton of birdies at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the mentality of a WGC. You're going to see on Sunday guys that, if you're not top heavy in placement points, it's really about just how you score. Can you get some streaks? Can you get some bonuses? And even if you're in the back of the pack, you can outscore your placement, which is really the key. So definitely want to look at the birdie makers. And obviously, we don't have to worry about a cut.
What do you do with strategy in a no-cut event like this? Because if you take the guys at the very bottom, who are definitely going to play 72 holes, and there's 2 guys that I'm not going to be taking or 3 guys I'm not going to be taking because they may or may not withdraw after like 1 shot and go collect their paycheck and just bugger off out of Memphis. But it seems like a lot of people will end up going stars and scrubs solely because your guys aren't going to miss the cut. So if you want to have DJ and Brooks in a lineup, you can do that this week.
Yeah, that I think is a common, thought process in this because it's like you just said, oh, what's the worst that can happen? But you know what? Even within just because you get 72 holes doesn't mean you can't be completely working with a 5 of 6. So you want to be cognizant that just having guys play, yeah, obviously they're going to have an opportunity on Saturday and Sunday to maybe right the ship. But if you have 4 bad rounds in there, you're not going to be able, everyone is getting 6 of 6 through. So you won't be able to hang around with some dead guys towards the bottom. So stars and scrubs to me is overblown in non-cuts. I think you still want to treat it as making sure you have a well-rounded roster.
How much money are you willing to leave on the table in an event like this? And do you think you'll have a single roster that uses all $50,000 of the salary cap? Because with a condensed field, this isn't the Tour Championship or the Tournament of Champions where there's like 28 dudes in the field, or the Hero. 64 is still not what we're accustomed to on a weekly basis. Like if you want to go to the British Open and you want to leave $0 on the table, there's 156 guys. You can figure out a way to get contrarian. In a field like this, like you can find ways to get contrarian, but if you're off in your ownership projections, you might end up with the same lineup as like 45 other guys.
Yeah, it's a middle ground. Like you said, something like the Hero. I remember when I talked about that tournament early in the year, and I said, honestly, I would take if you gave me a unique lineup, I wouldn't even care who was in it. It was that random to me. You just want to try to build unique. This isn't that. I think you can still build to 50K, given you have a very weird combo. Most of my lineups certainly won't do that this week. You definitely want to look to leave some money on the table. Like you said, it's only 64 guys, non-cut. That changes the dynamic of how you build.
All right, let's jump into the field. With the course, TPC Southwind, there's a lot of water on this course, so expect some big numbers just to blow people up at any point. Fortunately, they can rally back if need be. Longish par 4, 7 of them over 450 yards. I'm really targeting off the tee and approach more than off the tee. So even when I custom stack my modeling on fantasynational.com, which everyone should do, I even went back and checked my notes from last year. This model did really, really well with the tournament of last season. It turned out quality results, and when Dustin wins and he's your top guy, it even like popped out Putnam for me, and I ended up with a lot of like 1-2 lineups. This is one of my better tournaments last year. How do you think that looking at stats in a field like this, knowing it's so much stronger than what we're used to at this course, do you think it correlates at all, or is it just better to start fresh?
I mean, if I had to pick one of them, I think it's better to start fresh. Obviously, it's something you can check out. Played at TPC Southwind for a long, long time, but to me, this is kind of a different animal. It's also a different schedule. The majority of this field is flying over after, either 2 or 4 rounds in weird conditions, the wind, rain, and whatnot. So that's a wild card. It's hard to quantify, obviously, but for me, it's just kind of treating it on its own merit. And we do have some history with these guys, but I'm with you. I think tee to green is going to be it's always important, but really need those ball strikers this week.
Yeah, I would even try to get, although the green regulation percentage is a bit down here, as is driving accuracy, the winners tend to eclipse the field in that. So if you're worrying too much, and we kind of say this a lot, and at some courses that play more difficult, this was the 11th most difficult on tour last season. But again, that's with the field that showed up there. This is a much stronger field, so they should end up posting lower scores. I don't know if anyone gets like minus 19 like Dustin did last year, but he ended up winning by 6 strokes. I would expect to see the winning score to be like minus 15 to minus 18, and a bunch of guys trying to challenge that. Unless they really ratchet up the difficulty, which I have no idea whether they're going to do that or not. But like the fairways are super narrow. You're going to miss the fairway. You're going to have to play it out of the rough. Like that's not that big of a deal here. The rough doesn't tend, at least historically, to be very long. You can still get your greens in regulation. But if you're looking at around the green and short game numbers at an event where the winner is going to be like minus 15, minus 16, minus 17, that means your guys aren't doing very well.
No, it's a fine line. Obviously, even if you're, timely scrambling is something I always check out. But on the whole, it's not as severe as like at the John Deere, where it's like, if your guy is scrambling, just forget it. But at the same time, like you said, these guys are going to go pretty low. I don't know, again, it's a new time. This used to be the lead up, I think, to the US Open. So did they change it to tailor it to that? Maybe, I don't know. But I think all in all, what we've seen is probably how it'll play. It's just a much stronger field, and guys are certainly going to be eclipsing, I think, on what we've seen the field do in recent years.
Although you mentioned it's unknowable, I tend to agree with you. You still have to pick a side on whether you think something's going to work or not. That these guys coming back over from Portrush, and it's the majority of the field that are playing in this WGC. There are very few guys that didn't play in the British Open that are in the field this week. Are you putting any stock into that? Like, players that maybe missed the cut and got to come home 2 days early versus guys that played all 4 rounds in that awful wind, then having to take a flight back? Or are you just saying, screw this is dumb, like I'm not even looking at that?
Again, if I had to choose, it'd probably be the latter. It's just so hard. You don't want to get into where you're trying to infer what guys are feeling. Obviously, there are some cases that I'll weigh it. Shane Lowry is a clear, obvious one. Not sure I don't even know if he's going to play, if he's ready to play. Certainly would seem skeptical. But at the same time, on the most part, these are world-class players. They're coming back. I'm going to just play it pretty straight up unless there's a handful of guys where maybe I weighed a little that it was a weird situation or they blew up on Sunday. It took a little out of them.
So let's talk about withdraws for a second, because if you're unfamiliar with the WGC rules, that if you show up, hit a tee shot, and withdraw, you will get a last place paycheck, and where everyone makes the cut, it's still like $37,000 or something like that. Worth going to Memphis, I think, if you're going to be lingering around anyway, to go hit a shot and go out. There are 3 guys that I worry about that might pull out of this tournament. I have real evidence about this, but just a gut feeling that I get. So I'm not going to play them in any lineups, because if you have a guy that WDs on you in a no-cut event, you're basically pooched. One is Louis. I can't even believe he's playing. Like, this is a perfect spot for Louis to WD. So I'm not going to be playing Louis, although I actually like how he ran a little bit for this course. I just don't want to have that headache when it happens. The second one is Kevin Na, who's withdrawn from 3 consecutive tournaments, says he's returning this week. Like, he pulled out after the first round at the 3M, skipped the next week on a withdrawal, skipped the British Open on a withdrawal, yet he's coming back for this. I could see him just going to collect a paycheck. That's me. And the other one's just Shane Lowry. I don't know sort of state he's going to be in. As my producer Paul pointed out, being a burly Irish fella that, maybe he just says, screw it. I've played enough rounds hungover in my life, but I just assume he's still drunk at this point.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption. I'll echo all 3. Obviously, to me, if I had to rate them, Kevin Na, it seems like you have to get him right twice. A, he's got to show up and not just withdraw, and B, even if he plays, I think it's a pretty fair chance that he's just rusty and not good. Shane Lowry, I think we both just discussed it. I don't even know. I have a feeling he's not going to play. I bet he withdraws for the tournament. I don't even know where he is, if he's still in Europe. Have to check the Twitter sphere for that. Louis, I'll probably have some shares, but tread lightly. You're right. This is a classic Louis WD spot, coming off the British, where he obviously cares a little more than usual.
Now, it's tough to really separate your lineups, as we talked about with guys coming back over from Portrush, because frankly, there's just not a lot of guys in the field who didn't play in the British Open. The only ones I can really see are the Wolfman, Matthew Wolff, Max Hama, who I don't think played in the Open. No, he did not play in the Open. And like Adam Long and Kevin Tway. Like, those are like the 4 guys.
Yeah, I mean, for the majority of them, there's a reason they didn't play in the Open. I know they're decent players, obviously, got some wins and whatnot, but I'm not going to. Yeah, you're going to be forced to play people who played last week. That's a given. It's just a matter of what are you going to do up top. It's an incredibly strong field. Everyone's here except I don't see Ricky and Molinari, I want to say. But other than that, obviously, you're going to have your pick of all the top tier talents.
Yeah, the 5 guys that aren't here are Tiger, Ricky, Molinari, Wiesberger, and Lee Westwood, the guys that were eligible for this field and decided just to, you know what? See you later. We're not going to play this week. So let's get into the players, the guys that are actually here, the above $10,000 level. And it kicks off with Brooks Koepka coming off another excellent week. He's $11,600. He has a second place finish at the St. Jude Classic at this course. Dustin's won at this course twice. He's 11-4. Rory played this like 7-8 years ago. Basically has no history here. He's 11-1. JT coming off consecutive top 11 finishes overseas, 10-7. Rahm got the win at the Irish and lingered around on the leaderboard at the Open. He's 10-4. And then Tommy Fleetwood off his runner-up finish at the British Open, $10,200. Objectively, I like Dustin Johnson the best. He's familiar with this course. He shows up every single year. He has the perfect skill set because not only is it like, it's not a long course in terms of overall yardage, but the way that the holes actually play themselves out and being a par 70 for par adjusted length, it's actually quite long. And I think that people are going to overlook that. I think you do need a bit of distance. We've seen guys excel here that aren't necessarily long hitters off the tee, but generally speaking, they do really well. It's like, I looked at like the Travelers Championship crossover, where again, that's not a super long course. And, we've seen a myriad of different types of players win there, but bombers tend to do really well there as well.
I see that. I think there is some merit to that. Obviously, DJ tore this place apart last year, much weaker field, different situation, but you're going to have options. Obviously, Rory is right there at 11-1. JT got a price bump after last week where he was, I thought, underpriced. He's starting to get it together. The putting has been letting him down a bit, but the ball striking is there. So I'm certainly going to look to grab one of these guys. Like you said, you could probably try to pair him up, but that's immediately to me just a very unnecessary proposition. So I'll probably lean where I always do to Rory. But I mean, pick of the litter. The big question I have is, do you think Brooks cares here? What does the WGC do for him?
I don't know. He's never won a WGC, so I really have no idea. I think that when we look at like who's going to be owned and who's not going to be owned, I think that, like always, that Brooks is probably just going to, he and Rahm will probably come in with the lowest ownership of these plus 10K guys. And I tried this at the 3M. I used a ton of Brooks. He made the cut. It was fine. He actually played well, but it was unnecessary to go up to that price. And I don't know. I can see him coming in like single digit ownership, to be perfectly honest with you, where Rory's going to come in at like 20%. Dustin will come in at 20%. People are just like, yeah, Brooks doesn't care. Like eventually he's going to win one of these things.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's overblown, from what we saw, at the British, he really just couldn't buy a putt. He had so many opportunities and, Sunday was a whole craziness. He did rally a bit there. I think ownership will be somewhat dispersed up top. Like JT should garner some. Rahm, yeah, I'm with you there. Him and Fleetwood, I don't think we'll get a ton of buzz, even though obviously they're gonna still have ownership. Rahm is always interesting to me. He, like you said, he did hang around. I don't want to say he blew up, but he did his stuff where gets into a little trouble and never really threatened when it was all said and done. But we know how aggressive he is off the tee. He's an incredible birdie maker. I think the course sets up well for what he likes to do.
If I'm going to go with my two guys above here, it's probably going to be Dustin and Justin Thomas, unless they become overwhelming chalk. Which, maybe I'll just have to eat it and find some other way to differentiate, whether it be with a lower owned player or whether it be with salary left on the table. But those are my two really strong feels from the top. Who would be your two?
It would be Rory and Rahm. Guys, obviously, all of them these guys are serious off the tee, but I'll lean to them. Rory, I don't read really anything. I guess that's a topic we could talk about for a second, is just, do you care if your guy got cut last week? To me, it doesn't make a difference for any of the top guys. In some ways, you could say it's nice because they didn't have to play Saturday and Sunday.
That would be my lean on it, although I have no empirical evidence to back that up. That I mean, Rory probably stuck around for all 4 rounds just because he was like an ambassador, where someone like Bryson probably got on a flight and just came back to Memphis. So I would actually prefer my guys miss the cut last week and just not have to be out there playing those super long open rounds and bad conditions and the taxing event of not only being a major, but coming back from overseas, clearing customs. It's a big time difference change. We kind of said this about the US Open. We were kind of wishy-washy about it at the Travelers the next week, coming back across the country, but going from San Francisco to Hartford, I think is a lot different than going from Ireland to Memphis in terms of actual travel.
Absolutely. And like I said, these are top tier guys. We know we're going to get to Bryson. He's someone, I definitely want to talk about. So I have no worries about that. And naturally, on a macro level, I think people tend to, devalue ownership wise when they look and they say, oh, this guy missed the cut last week, I'm not going to play him.
$9,000 level. Cantlay kicks it off. He's $9,800. Tim Andercust has used Justin Rose as his one and done this week. He is 95. Xander's 93. The no cut specialist, Xander Schauffele. There's a few of those who really excel at these type of formats. Stenson is 91. Kuchar is $9,000. I don't really know what to do with this range. I think that Cantlay and Xander are the two best plays. I'd probably end up going with Xander, but I'm actually even considering starting my lineups just in the $8,000 level and just building a balanced lineup that way.
Certainly plenty of names down there that we haven't talked about. This is a weird range. You have Justin Rose. I mean, I don't know what to say. Obviously, Sunday, if you talked about Jason Day was my big problem. My second biggest problem was Justin Rose, who just gave it all back with a 79, I think, 8 over, just awful. Xander, you said it. He's an incredible driver of the ball, has a win at a WGC. The price never really I always feel like it's overpriced, but it's not. He's just an incredibly good player. So what the rest of the range though, Stenson, Kuchar, I don't have a strong feel. Kind of feels like a dead range overall. I wouldn't be stunned to see me take one above them and a couple guys below it when on most of my rosters.
It's strange. Xander has 4 wins in his career, and 3 of them are at no-cut events. It's like Justin Thomas forever would just win no-cut events until he finally broke through and just started winning everything. And the good thing about Justin Thomas too is that not only no-cut events, we're back on Bermuda in less than a par 72. Xander can really kind of take advantage of this as well. He won the Tournament Champions, he won the Tour Championship, he won the WGC HSBC over in China. Like, that stuff does resonate in my mind a little bit about who I want to take for these sort of events. That there's a certain mindset that I think you need to get yourself in, that you're never really out of it, that other players have a more difficult time wrapping their minds around. Because like someone like Brooks, who, and I mean, Feinberg has mentioned this a bunch of times, that when Xander's out of a tournament, he's like out of it, and he just might pack it in. But in an event like this, he knows he can go and shoot a 60, and that will keep him motivated the entire time to at least try to go out and attempt to shoot one of those scores, like we saw at the Tournament of Champions earlier this year when he just wrapped off like a 62 and a -9 to go beat Gary Woodland in the opening event of this year. That I think there is something to this mentality. Maybe I'm putting too much stock in that.
No, I agree with that. Again, it's tough to know each player's thought on something like that, but we have seen it with Xander. He has the ability to turn around. And I will say, even in events, obviously, you can take just last week, he has the ability to just grind back in it. Doesn't mean he's going to win, but I do like that about him. He's a guy that on the whole, I don't play a ton because like I said, $200 more for someone like Justin Rose, who I do think he is a better player, but there's no arguing that Xander has some things that you like to see in a week like this.
Any interest in like the shorter hitting but accuracy mavens like Stenson and Kuchar? Because I'm off those guys this week.
Not really. Something like this, when you have a non-cut and you're talking about still top 10, top 20 players in the world, you can go there. It's not like I see anything wrong with it, but for an opportunity cost, there's guys we just mentioned. And as you said, you could start in the 8K range. There's a handful of guys that I like significantly more, and you're getting a discount price-wise.
Well, let's talk about those guys in the 8K range, because a couple of my favorites are in here. Hideki's in here. Bryson's in here. We have Tony Finau, Shane Lowry. They all pop up in the $8,000 range, along with Jason Day, Jordan Spieth, Webb Simpson, Gary Woodland, Louis, who I had mentioned before, who I'm not taking, Reed and Hatton, who I'll probably cross off for this type of event as well. They're more of a WGC Mexico type of feel rather than this course. I really like Hideki and Bryson. They're my 2 favorite plays of the week. Adam Scott's on the periphery for me. I'll see if I can work him in. But the guys in the lower end of this tier that I like are Casey and Webb Simpson.
Yeah, this is a loaded range. We have a handful of guys who all missed the cut. When you look at Decky, Bryson, Adam Scott, I'm not as high on, but those top 2 who lead off the 8K, we know them for Decky with his irons. Bryson, obviously, a very good driver of the ball. Don't worry about the missed cuts. You could pair them up. You can do a lot in terms of roster construction with that. Finau, he's someone, what can you say? He looked better last week. Played really well on Sunday, to grind that out. Price really hasn't bumped up completely. It's starting to garner more attention, obviously, now that he's rounding back into form. But there's no reason for me to shy away from him. And what can I say? I'm going back to Jason Day. I don't know why exactly, but he's just someone, when I see $8,300, certainly shouldn't be popular after last week, I'm still willing to buy, even though it was incredibly disappointing to see that collapse.
Early ownership only has 3 guys in the single digits in this range. One is Spieth, one is Lowry, and the other one is Louis. If you wanted a pivot play, those are the 3 options that you have over. Even Jason Day's going to garner like 14% ownership because it's a WGC. There's only so many guys that you can actually pick in this field. But I have no interest in any 3 of those guys is the problem.
Yeah, it seems Shane Lowry, we talked about. I'm not going to get there. Louis, maybe I sprinkle just because if you told me all systems go with him, I wouldn't mind it a ton. He does fit the course, I think, but just motivation and things do worry me with him. And then Spieth, I mean, the guy, it's incredible that he can even hang around with the way he drives the ball. Obviously, every time I saw him, he was hitting from bushes and hills and all sorts of things, but he holds it together. I'm still not going to go there. And then I'm going to play Patrick Reed. I know that you just said you're not a fan of him in this spot, and I see that, but his irons have been way better than we normally see. I think he's still trending upward.
Yeah, Hatton's actually the other one who will be in single digits in the $8,000 range, although that would probably be my favorite pivot, but I don't even know. I don't like him enough that I would even go there. Upper $7,000 level. It's weird how the chalk is shaping up here, at least the early chalk. Because Chez Reavie leads off this range, and Chez Reavie he just won Travelers. I just called that a comp course. He's played a lot here. So you have Chez, Rafa, Putnam, Garcia, Wallace, Fitzpatrick, Leishman, Willett, Wolf, Billy Horschel. The way that the chalk is stacking up, like everyone's playing Chez, everyone's playing Horschel, and everyone's playing Putnam, which just seems insane looking at these names.
Yes, that is insane to me. But I'm someone that I arbitrarily rank the golfers in my mind, and I tend to pick the guys I think are better on the whole. So you look at guys like Sergio, like Leishman, Matt Wallace, Danny Willett, Fitzy. Those guys, the English dudes, I'm not sure I'm super keen on, but give me Leishman and I'll roll a dice on Sergio. It's been a while, but he's played really well at Travelers as well in his limited appearances. Good driver of the ball. I know it's not firing on all cylinders, but I'm getting a discount of $100 between him and Chez and an ownership discount. I don't know how I passed that up.
Yeah, I like Sergio here. Rafa, another really interesting one. 3 consecutive top 10s before he was the most owned guy last week. Blows up, misses the cut. He has a second place finish at this event. It's really funny that people are using course history to justify using Chez. I mean, Chez has been really good. Maybe they're not using that to justify Chez, but like, what is the case for Billy Horschel other than he has played really well with this course in the past?
Yeah, I mean, Billy Ho, you got to hope, and it's not like it doesn't happen. He can get crazy hot with Bermuda, but I'm really not. Again, $100 more. Give me Mark Leishman, who was he didn't give me a sweat. There was no sweat last week with him. He was just an immediate miscut. I respect the effort. Didn't have to worry about it. But at 7,600, we've seen him compete in strong fields. I have no problem just rolling the dice once again.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Horschel plays really well on these longer par 4s from 450 to 500 yards. He's actually 4th in the field over the past 36 rounds. There are cases to be made for him, but like you go and look at his recent results, miscut, 17th at the Rocket Mortgage, 32nd at the U.S. Open, 9th at Memorial, 23rd, 45th, 56th, like good, but not great by any means. And if he's going to end up like 15 to 17% owned, that just seems like a pure pass to me, where I know Phil's not playing well at all, but he's someone who basically plays his tournament every single year and tends to do pretty well.
You are getting 72 holes for a change with Phil. Now, can he avoid water and blowups? I'm still skeptical. I've been pretty much fading him. Obviously the wheels have come off lately. He's just been awful. But I may take a sliver. 7,300 is a pretty appealing price point. And I don't see a ton that I like next to him when you're looking at Kisner. Noren did play very well last week. Not sure I'm going to try get sucked into that vortex immediately. And then we've got, some other dudes. The one guy I want to mention in the low sevens.
I got one. I got one for you.
It's your boy. So I like Bubba.
I like Bubba too.
Oh, dear God. Well, is this a Bubba core? I mean, you're the Bubba whisperer. I go to you for that.
So I guess the big thing with Bubba is I have no real track record of him at this course is the issue. He played in the WGC St. Jude, which is now like that's the problem when they changed these WGC names, that he was like 31st at Bridgestone last year. But if you look at the St. Jude Classic, no results. But this seems to be like a prototypical Bubba type of course. It's not POA, which is difficult because that's generally where he gets a lot of his wins. But he does have wins on Bermuda as well, whether it be at the match play, whether it be at TPC Louisiana, which is also a Bermuda Pete Dye course. Plays really well at Pete Dye courses. But when we go back and look at his track record, obviously I mentioned that Travelers is a place that you can correlate with this, and he can just take wedge. He can basically go driver wedge on every single hole. And it's not like he's losing strokes off the tee. He's second in this field in strokes gained off the tee over the past 36 rounds. 7 of the past 8 winners of this event at this course. Now, not necessarily this event, but the St. Jude Classic, finished top 15 in the field in strokes gained off the tee for that particular week. You don't need to be the best, but you need to be pretty good at it. And we know Bubba's irons are just all over the place. One week they can be great. The other week they can just be piss poor. The putter worries me with him. The lack of experience worries me with him. But if I'm I'm also going to throw Valspar into this mix. He finished top 5 at Valspar earlier this year too. Like, it's a shorter course, it's a bit difficult, and you don't think that it would necessarily be a Bubba track, but I can see it. In full disclosure, I bet him at 100-1 as well.
Yeah, I mean, triple digits for him at 7,100. These are things that I'm willing to go to. There's always scary things with Bubba. You know, I'll say I actually was pretty impressed he made the cut last week. For me, that's improvement for him over there. I know the recent form isn't great, but this is a guy that we have seen get crazy hot, and you summed it up. Off the tee game is unbelievable. He should be able to be creative around here, and he again, 72 holes. He can outscore his placement. There's nothing wrong with that. And he has a real buffer with this price point where you're not asking that much for him to return value.
And it's funny, like skill set wise, when you look at him versus the rest of the players in this range, like the only players that he really correlates with are Wolf and JB Holmes. The other guys are like Noren, Kisner, Pepperell, Cam Smith, Furyk, Beauregard, Billy Horschel, Brant Snedeker, Ian Poulter, like Danny Willett. Like, you have bombers, then you have sort of like the overall grinder type players that can get really hot with iron some week, but rely on their putter a lot. That I think that very few people will go to Bubba. Maybe people will now be like, Pat's always wrong, but I'll believe him on Bubba. Probably not a great idea. But I just like the way that his skills set up for this course. If we talked about that it's sneaky long to begin with, that can only play in the favor of Bubba Watson.
It's a situation too where, you know, that I'm willing to take the risk with a guy like him because I think the reward pays off. Some of these other guys, you know, if you told me I'm trying to hit a top 20 in the betting market, I'm not sure I'd look to someone like Bubba per se. I think it's more of a boom bust situation. Like you said, you bet an outright on him. And I think this is someone that I'm looking to really potentially make a huge move in terms of value in my lineups. Other lineups where I take a big risk somewhere else, I'm more apt to take someone like Kisner, you know, even like Leishman or one of the grinder types that it's not as explosive one way or the other.
Any interest in Matthew Wolff playing this event?
Not really, honestly. I might take a stab if he's low owned. I don't know where he's really at in terms of a field against these type of players.
It's interesting. Like, he might actually be a better bet than he would be a DraftKings play because he's actually coming in relatively chalky. I have him anywhere between like 12 and 16%. But skill-wise, the skills that we've been talking about are exactly what Matthew Wolff does, just absolutely go out and bomb it. And I don't know. It's just he's either wildly overpriced for this field or wildly underpriced or overpriced. Like 7,500 does not seem to be the right price for him. He should either be like 9,000 or 6,100. I agree with that. I just don't know where his baseline skill set actually is. Has he been overperforming? Probably, but he's a pedigree player. And this is his first time in a big stage against these like elite players in a real event. I'm just very curious to how all this shakes out.
I am too. It's more that he, to me, is just clearly going to be over-owned. And when you're looking, you know, it's a non-cut, you're looking for small edges. That's something I think I can get away with. I'm not saying that Matthew Wolff is so outclassed he's going to finish dead last. It's not a situation like that at all. But I think there's a giant middling result factor for him. And like you said, you give me ownership in the teens, I'll take one-offs against other guys that, to me, have a more realistic chance to knock on the door.
All right, 6K guys, you're going to go into this level because, hey, guys aren't going to miss the cut. So you might as well take some of these guys who pile up birdies and bunches from down here. I would guess that Keegan Bradley at 6,900 will end up being the best of, actually the most owned of these guys. And we talk Travelers, we talk Valspar, that, you know, he's played well there before. Can he putt? No, but maybe this is a week where he can? I don't know. I might avoid that chalk with Keegan Bradley, though. Do you have a take on him?
Yeah, I don't like playing Keegan when he's chalky like every other sane person in the world. You look at who he's up against in terms of the other 6K players. I get it. Very strong tee to green. He's always like that terrible putter. We've seen him, you know, in FedEx events. He's competed when he blew up against Bryson. Still a little bitter about that. But there are some other names. Most of the other guys, though, are, you know, international. We have Thunder Bear at 6,700. Hao Tong Lee is 6,600. There's not a lot of safety down here. but you have limited options. So I get why Keegan would garner some ownership.
Yeah, he's the most recognizable name, at least from a DraftKings perspective, that people play week after week after week. And he tends to make the cut. Like, I get it. And if we're looking at ball striking, he's an excellent ball striker. But if you go and look at his most recent results, it's kind of strange because he actually gained like 9 strokes putting at the Travelers when he came second. Then he followed that up by gaining 4 in the next event, which is like shocking for Keegan Bradley. So he's actually been riding a hot putter, and the ball striking actually hasn't been all that good. So if his putting just goes back to normal or field average, he could end up being an absolute disaster if he cannot improve with his iron, something which he normally does, but something just seems to be off about him right now. So I think it's a nice spot to fade him. Thunder Bear is the really interesting one. Not Thunder Bear, sorry. Lucas Beauregard, I think, is the actual interesting one here. So you go back and look at his results this year. He came over for WGC Mexico, was horrible. Then he played the Honda, he came 12th. He played the Players against the stack field, he came 30th. Missed the cut at Valero against a bunch of nobodies. That's kind of strange. Plays the Masters 21st. Goes to Byron Nelson against a bunch of nobodies, misses the cut. PGA Championship 16th. Canadian Open against Rory and a bunch of nobodies, misses the cut. Missed the cut at the US Open, then comes 16th at the Open. He can actually compete in these elite fields against elite players. It's just when you throw him in with a bunch of scrubs, he sucks. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, that is odd. You can add in, obviously he was very impressive in the match play as well.
Yeah.
Yep. He's someone, again, you're talking boom and bust, that $10 tournament that you alluded to with 200K up top. I think he's a perfect play for that because we've seen him in majors. We've seen him in strong fields compete. It's a guy that's going to gain strokes off the tee, which to me is one of the priorities this week. Like anyone, the putting is going to come and go. 6,900, I have no problem looking to him. He certainly got more popular early in the year, and then some of those mysterious and head-scratching miscuts mitigated the steam that he was getting. So I think it's a fine opportunity for him to build on a solid week across the pond last week.
So the guys that I project for double digits in the $6,000 range, Keegan is one of them. Keith Mitchell, Nate Lashley, Max Hama, and Corey Connors. I really like how Max Hama rates out in this field at $6,400. Can the guy make a putt? I don't know. But Bermuda is the only putting surface where he actually gains strokes, so that's nice. And this is his first time back on Bermuda grass since his win at Quail Hollow, so that's something interesting as well. And Corey Connors, can he putt field average? If he does, he's going to finish inside the top 20. So those are the two guys I like. I'll be full fade on Lashley and Mitchell, but I'll probably end up using Beauregard and Haotong as well as lower-owned options to get away from some of that chalk. But I think you can play 2 of these guys if you wanted to go with 2 guys in the 9s, 2 guys in the 8s, and 2 of these guys. I don't hate that as a build this week.
No, there are some ways to do that. I obviously lower than that. There's no one with these made up people, but Killa Keith is the one I've seen his name thrown around. I get it. Going back to Bermuda, he had all that success during the Florida swing, but his irons are borderline broken. I'm not sure I can get there just on that fact alone. I'd be more apt to honestly say, you know what, I'm going to pay Kevin Tway, who's another aggressive driver of the ball. Or you could play the super putter, that Justin Harding guy with his broomstick. Every time they go to him, it's just making a miraculous putt. So that's something you can kind of bank on with him, that he's going to gain on the greens. I don't think this is the best setup for him, though.
No, but he was a part of the DraftKings Millionaire Maker British Open winning lineup.
There you go. Look at that. Yeah, I mean, the guy he never missed. Talk about an ascension. Not that we need to spend time on him, but he was on the Sunshine Tour, which doesn't seem promising, and now he's just in things like this. So good for him. What a run he's had.
I'm still trying to figure out how this guy Philip Eriksson got into the field.
Yeah, who is that?
He's a Swedish player who plays on the African and Sunshine Tour. Yet he doesn't seem to have any wins. No, sorry, he won the Dimension Data Pro-Am at the beginning of the year. I don't understand how he's in this tournament. He's the number 385th ranked player in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. I know obviously on WGCs they take, the guys from those other tours. Your boy Poom is in here.
Oh, Poom! Shake the room.
There he is. Philip Eriksson, though, I don't know who that is. So don't think that's the answer at flat 6K. Good for him, though. He's going to get a nice payday.
Yeah, he will. It'll probably be one of the better paydays of his career. I'm looking at the updated betting odds right now because Jeff and I discussed a lot of stuff, and I haven't really changed that since yesterday. I added Bubba to the list at 100-1 with the each way. That was really it. And Hama and Connors were my guys. Maybe I'll take a look at Olesen. I don't even know what his or keep getting Olsen and Beauregard mixed up, but Beauregard's 125 to 1. I think that might end up being the play from down there. I was going to add one more, whether it be Haotong or whether it be Olsen. Maybe I'll just end up betting them first round leader. I don't know. But I ended up playing the top 20s. They were savvy to the top 20 market on this one. I thought I could catch them with their pants down based on the outright odds, but Max Hama is only 650 and Corey Connors is 5 to 1. I played both of those, plus them as first round leader, but I was hoping to get like 10 to 1 or something like that based on how odds normally correlate to the top 20. But when you only have to beat a third or 2/3 of the field, it's going to be a little bit different. Any bets that you like? Because I was looking at the top Swede, speaking of Eriksson. It's like, if we just take Eriksson out, he's 16 to 1 to be top Swede. It's a head-to-head Stenson versus Norin, but Norin's playing 2 to 1 as a head-to-head basically against Stenson. He beats Stenson one of every 3 times, doesn't he? Or one of every 2 times? Or 2.5 times based on the 200?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're getting some value there. Like you said, what do you think that head-to-head would be? I don't think he would be plus 200. He would, obviously, we know he'd be a dog and probably a decent-sized one. But coming off of last week, that's not the worst. Then again, there were multiple situations during the British where I was going to splurge on top Australian with Day when he had a nice lead over Cam Smith. Thank God I held off there. And Robert McIntyre, who decided not to come over to Reno, I saw taking down Russell Knox for top Scottish player. So you never know with these type of things.
Do you know that Cam Smith is one of a handful of players who made the cut in all 4 majors?
That is insane. Considering, talk about, you were saying with Beauregard, I don't have Cam Smith stuff in front of me, but in between the majors, I can tell you it hasn't been remotely good.
No, and even at the majors, it wasn't all that good. He was 20th at the Open. That's great. He was 72nd at the U.S. Open, 64th at the PGA, and he was 51st at the Masters.
Yeah, so he only got a placement point in 1 of 4, but he made the weekend. I guess that's impressive. And at the Players, he was 56. So good for him finding all 4 days and just being horrendous on the weekend, I guess.
Any chance that you might take JB Holmes?
No. Nope. I don't even, if he's finished from his round, I assume he's done by now. Crisp 90 or whatever he shot. No, I'm not going there.
He's gained strokes on approach in 8 consecutive events. He's played well at Travelers in the past, and legitimately no one's going to own him this week.
That is true. He's not going to be popular. My God, though, it's just, boy, he lost almost 4 strokes off the tee at the Open. That's
I think a lot of that had to do with him hitting it out of bounds on the first hole of round 4 with an iron. That was not a good start.
No, that was, the announcers are debating. He was out by like 15 yards. I don't know what they were looking at. But yeah, I mean, JB Holmes, it's hard to tell how do you react from 87 or whatever he shot. I have no idea. Bubba to me is the clear role, bomber in that range. But if you're building 150 lineups, can you take 5% JB Holmes? Absolutely.
That's an easy answer to everything, though. Are you even going to build 150 lineups? Because I'm not.
No chance. And he is so far down on the priority list. I would rather take a more firm stance with Bubba leverage than even sprinkle on JB Holmes.
I have him as the lowest owned player in the 7K range. It's like him and Eddie Pepperell. Those are the 2 that no one's going to own. And Phil.
See, like all of those guys, not that I have a strong take on Pepperell, but I would rather take Phil, who I know, obviously we talked about a little, it's just not working right now. And of course there's blow up risk, but at the same time, if I was just going to take a pure flyer, I feel more comfortable on Phil still having more, say, top 5 or top 10 equity than JB Holmes.
All right. Ben Rasa, have you started your football work yet?
I have. So over at awesemo.com, we're putting out some team previews and whatnot. And then in my own life, obviously I'm prepping for college football. We're going to have a ton on the site for that. College football, my favorite sport of all of them. Golf's all right too, but I can't wait. We're less than a month away from getting right into it. So it's going to be a busy summer and obviously a great fall.
All right, Ben Rasa, thank you for being on. You can follow Ben on Twitter at JazzRazDFS and check him out at awesemo.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and the Instagrams at the PME. My betting cheat sheet will be out on my Facebook page on Wednesday afternoon. My DraftKings cheat sheet will be up on DKPlaybook.com later on Tuesday. If you want to play in the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Open, hit the description. You can find the link in there. It's super easy. And if you ask where the link is, I'm going to know you didn't fucking listen or watch. You're just being an asshole about it. So watch, listen, and download the Pat Mayo Experience. I talked about the giveaways, and with a month left to go, now is a really good time for a monthly membership to fantasynational.com, by the way. Takes you right through the Tour Championship. There's still a bunch of money to be had on DraftKings, in the betting market, wherever, and you can put those tools to absolutely fantastic use at fantasynational.com. So become a member today. That'll do it. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck at St. Jude. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!